So downstairs I went, clearing my throat and holding my heart. Lo was now in the living room, in her favourite overstuffed chair. As she sprawled there, biting at a hangnail and mocking me with her heartless, vaporous eyes, and all the time rocking a stool upon which she had placed the heel of an outstretched shoeless foot, I perceived all at once, with a sickening qualm, how much she had changed since I first met her 2 years ago. Or had this happened during those last 2 weeks? Tendresse? Surely that was an exploded myth. She sat right in the focus of my incandescent anger. The fog of all lust had been swept away, leaving nothing but this dreadful lucidity. Oh, she had changed. Her complexion was now that of any vulgar, untidy high school girl who applies shared cosmetics with grubby fingers to an unwashed face, and does not mind what soiled texture, what pustulate epidermis comes in contact with her skin. Its smooth, tender bloom had been so lovely in former days, so bright with tears, when I used to roll in play, her tousled head on my knee. A coarse flush had now replaced that innocent fluorescence. What was locally known as rabbit cold had painted with flaming pink the edges of her contemptuous nostrils. As in terror I lowered my gaze, it mechanically slid along the underside of her tensely stretched bare thigh. How polished and muscular her legs had grown. She kept her wide-set eyes, clouded glass-grey and slightly bloodshot, fixed upon me, and I saw the stealthy thought showing through them that perhaps after all Mona was right, and she, orphan Lo, could expose me without getting penalized herself. How wrong I was. How mad I was. Everything about her was of the same exasperating, impenetrable order. The strength of her shapely legs, the dirty sole of her white sock, the thick sweater she wore despite the closeness of the room, her wenchy smell, and especially the dead end of her face with its strange flush and freshly made-up lips. Some of the red had left stains on her front teeth, and I was struck by a ghastly recollection, the evoked image not of Monique, but of another young prostitute in a bell-house, ages ago, who had been snapped up by somebody else before I had had time to decide whether her mere youth warranted my risking some appalling disease, and who had just such flushed prominent pommettes, and a dead maman, and big front teeth, and a bit of dingy red ribbon in her country brown hair. "Well, speak," said Lo. "Was the corroboration satisfactory?" "Oh, yes," I said. "Perfect, yes. And I do not doubt you two made it up. As a matter of fact, I do not doubt you've told her everything about us." "Oh, yeah?" I controlled my breath and said, "Dolores, this must stop right away. I am ready to yank you out of Beardsley and lock you up you know where, but this must stop. I'm ready to take you away the time it takes to pack a suitcase. This must stop, or else anything may happen." Anything may happen, huh? I snatched away the stool she was rocking with her heel, and her foot fell with a thud on the floor. "Hey," she cried, "take it easy." "First of all, you go upstairs," I cried in my turn, and simultaneously grabbed at her and pulled her up. From that moment I stopped restraining my voice, and we continued yelling at each other, and she said unprintable things. She said she loathed me. She made monstrous faces at me, inflating her cheeks and producing a diabolical plopping sound. She said I had attempted to violate her several times when I was her mother's roomer. She said she was sure I had murdered her mother. She said she would sleep with the very first fellow who asked her, and I could do nothing about it. I said she was to go upstairs and show me all her hiding places. It was a strident and hateful scene. I held her by her knobby wrist, and she kept turning and twisting it this way and that, surreptitiously trying to find a weak point so as to wrench herself free at a favourable moment. But I held her quite hard, and in fact hurt her rather badly, for which I hope my heart may rot. And once or twice she jerked her arm so violently that I feared her wrist might snap. And all the while she stared at me with those unforgettable eyes where cold anger and hot tears struggled, and our voices were drowning the telephone, and when I grew aware of its ringing she instantly escaped. With people in movies, I seem to share the services of the machina telefonica and its sudden god. This time it was an irate neighbour. The east window happened to be agape in the living room, with the blind mercifully down, however, and behind it the damp black night of a sour New England spring had been breathlessly listening to us. I had always thought that type of haddocky spinster with the obscene mind was the result of considerable literary inbreeding in modern fiction, but now I am convinced that prude and prurient Miss East, or to explode her incognito, Miss Fenton LeBone, had been probably protruding 3/4 way from her bedroom window as she strove to catch the gist of our quarrel.
"This racket lacks all sense of—" quacked the receiver. "We do not live in a tenement here. I must emphatically—"
I apologised for my daughter's friends being so loud. Young people, you know, and cradled the next quack and a half. Downstairs the screen door banged. Low, escaped. Through the casement on the stairs I saw a small impetuous ghost slip through the shrubs. A silver dot in the dark hub of a bicycle wheel, moved, shivered, and she was gone. It so happened that the car was spending the night in a repair shop downtown. I had no other alternative than to pursue on foot the winged fugitive. Even now, after more than 3 years have heaved and elapsed, I cannot visualize that spring night street, that already so leafy street, without a gasp of panic. Before their lighted porch, Miss Lester was promenading Miss Fabian's dropsical dactyl. Mr. Hyde almost knocked it over. Walk 3 steps and run 3. A tepid rain started to drum on the chestnut leaves. At the next corner, pressing Lolita against an iron railing, a blurred youth held and kissed— oh, no, not her, mistake. My talons still tingling, I flew on. Half a mile or so east of number 14, Thayer Street tangles with a private lane and a cross street. The latter leads to the town proper. In front of the first drugstore I saw, what a melody of relief, Lolita's fair bicycle waiting for her. I pushed instead of pulling, pulled, pushed, pulled, and entered. Look out! Some 10 paces away, Lolita, through the glass of a telephone booth, membranous god still with us, cupping the tube, confidentially hunched over it, slit her eyes at me, turned away with her treasure, hurriedly hung up, and walked out with a flourish. "Tried to reach you at home," she said brightly. "A great decision has been made, but first, buy me a drink, Dad."